everyone, and welcome back to the pre-talk series. Today we are going to talk about normative ethics. I know this is not our comfort zone, but don't worry, I think this is very important in order that we can go through the ethical cycle that we talked about at the beginning of the series. So let me just put it back into context. We said that by the end of the series, we should be able to spot a moral dilemma, look at how we can come up with some ideas to address the dilemma, use some ethical frameworks that help us refer back and make a judgment and then make an argument about why our decision is right. So these ethical frameworks that we are going to talk about today are the ones that I would like you to think about. And we will look at utilitarianism, which is an ethical theory that was conceived by Jeremy Bentham, freedom principle, which is a development of utilitarianism by John Stuart Mill. Then we'll look at duty theory or deontological ethics by Immanuel Kant. And then finally, we'll look at virtue ethics, which is a very old framework defined idea initially by Aristotle. Now, before we get started with these ethical frameworks, it is important to understand the difference between morality and ethics. So whilst morality looks at the totality of opinions that people have on whether something is good or bad, ethics critically reflects on morality. And this is important because normative ethics does not just look back at what morality is, but it judges morality in trying to answer a question. Such as, for example, what should I do in a particular situation? How should I act? And will it be right or wrong? So normative ethics is what we are going to be looking at. How do I act? And is it right or wrong? But normative ethics doesn't provide a formula, and we like formulas, don't we? But it doesn't. It doesn't give us the right or the wrong answer. Instead, it uses the various ethical frameworks that we are going to discuss and tries to find the best combination to help us reach a decision. The three best known ethical frameworks are consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics. Whilst virtue ethics focuses on the actions of the person, deontology focuses on the actions themselves, and consequentialism on the consequences of the actions. So the person, the action, and the consequences of the action. So onto the frameworks. So utilitarianism by Bentham is the main variety of consequentialism. This ethical framework draws on the utility principle, the greatest happiness for the greater number of people. And that's basically what it says. Utilitarianism requires a moral balance sheet to be drawn basically to determine which action has the best consequence. So we evaluate all the possible actions to follow, and we decide which one will have the best consequence to the majority of people. And although intuitively this ethical framework sounds great, it has also been heavily criticized, particularly because it can lead to exploitation. In order to deal with this particular problem, John Stuart Mill, who actually was the grandson of Bentham, developed a variation of utilitarianism called freedom principle. This principle states that anyone is free to strive for their own happiness as long as they don't hinder the happiness of others. Other criticism of utilitarianism, however, is that the actions sometimes are wrong independent of the consequences, like lying, for example. One can say, I lied so that everyone was happy, but lying in general is understood to be wrong. So as well, there is the criticism that happiness cannot be measured very easily, and how do you really can predict a consequence? So those are the main problems, criticisms of utilitarianism. Deontology, or duty ethics, which is the second theory, was developed by Kant. And it looks at whether an action is morally right and if it is in agreement with a norm or rule. So I am going to do this, and does it match with a norm or rule? And Kant argues that moral laws should not be based on happiness, as happiness is an individual matter and very variable. A core notion in Kantian ethics is that of autonomy. He argues that we should be able, through reasoning, to decide what is morally right, independent of external norms, such as religions. Religions are also known as pluralistic theories. So I can decide whether something is right, but I don't need any other framework to help me. Kant believes that one should only act if we believe that our actions could become a universal law. In other words, so if I make a decision to do something, would everyone else make a similar decision? And could it become a rule, therefore? The main criticism of this theory is that it ignores conflicts between norms. So, yes, I may come up to the decision that this would be acceptable for many, but someone else might have come up with the same conclusion. And also that is too inflexible. The third framework is virtue ethics, and we mentioned that this is an old framework that was first devised by Aristotle. And this focuses on the traits of the person, not on the actions or the consequences of their actions. In the case of engineers, for us, it's very relevant as it includes things like professionalism, objectivity, being able to take on criticism, being creative. For example, the main criticism of virtue ethics, however, is that it doesn't tell you how to act. We can say, well, I'm professional, and it doesn't help me in any way to make a decision on how to ask. There is another contemporary theory that I didn't include initially, which is called care ethics, which doesn't focus on philosophical theories, but on the relationship between people. This framework is relevant for us as we are often involved with various stakeholders, like our customers, our employers, the community. And in order for us to use care ethics, we should look at the relevant norms that help us express due care to all of our stakeholders. These theories show that there is not a unique answer. As I said, it's not a formula. There is no formula for us to rely on. All of them, however, argue that some things are just right or they are just wrong. Even if ethical theories do not guarantee that we will make the right decision, moral decisions that ignore ethical theories, however, or moral guidelines, social worries, or ethical concerns are, without a doubt, plainly wrong. So please refer back to chapter number 3 in your book, and you'll explore a little bit more about normative ethics. Thank you.